And then towards the end of the war, as I said, when the Russians were getting closer, they start moving guards away from there and stuff like that. And they had an officer that was a paratrooper officer. There was, I don't know how many, 4 or 5 or 6 of us anyway. We got together and he took us and we went out of the camp at one time to see what was what, because the guards, most all the guards had gone. We went out, went down, went into the city and everything else and around. And they had told us before, "Ya Amerikansky Lozchik," in Russians it means "I'm an American flyer."
Right.
And I remember we got into town and all of a sudden here comes the Russians. They had coming through on horseback. And they come screaming halt right in front of us. And we told them, "Amerikansky Lozchik." "Comrade, comrade." They bounded off on the horse and come down. The guy, one in charge, give us a big hug and everything else. But then they went on their mission around the town because they were cleaning up anyway, looking for any German soldiers or anything. But then we went back to the camp and we said to the guys in camp, we walked in, we says, "Open the doors." "What for?" "The shutters on the window." We said, "Open the shutters. Look up in the tower." We had Americans up in the tower.
Nice. Good.
Had Americans up in the tower.
So that was Liberation Day for...
Yeah, well, that was it. And then we tried to tell all of them to stay here until they get together.
Right.
Because some others took off, you know, to go to Paris and stuff like that. But they told them stay there. So then when they flew B-17s in, a whole bunch of B-17s.
Right into Barth.
Right into Barth. And B-17s, and we all went out and got to the planes and they flew us down there to
France, right?
France,
Yeah,
to Camp Lucky Strike, I think it was.
Yeah, Camp Lucky Strike.
Lucky Strike, they flew us to. And landed there, and then we were there. Oh, you see that that was pathetic. I mean, to see the fellas there. They had all kinds of food for us. And we had, not generals, but captains and everything else there. All officers, big officers, everything else. You go in there, they'd eat, and the next thing you know, they'd be walking along and you'd have to go and get a new change of clothes because it went right through you. The food would go right through you. Protein poisoning is what it was. Where you're not used to that high stuff, you know, that high protein
high test
stuff.
food, huh?
So we were right. Then they treated us good until some of the guys there left and went into Paris too.
Right.
They says, "You want to go?" I says, "No, I'm not going to miss the boat."
You're going to miss that boat home.
I'm not going to miss that boat home. And then when I got almost home, I was nervous and I didn't want to get out. I said, no. They were supposed to go to New York City. We wound up in Boston.
Oh, yeah.
And then from there...
What was the name of the ship, do you know?
No, I don't.
No.
It was one of the Liberty ships.
Okay.
And there was this movie actor on top. I was working on the ship. He was on the ship.
Not Clark Gable.
No. But I can't think of his name now. I used to know it. But anyway, he's quite a ladies' man. We got to Boston, he gets down there, you know, and all the girls are hugging him and everything else, and all the POWs are...
You didn't stand next to him then, huh?
No. But no, we were all on the ship. They wouldn't let us off until it was all organized and everything else. Moved it in. And then from there, we went back down to Fort Dix.
How'd you get there, by train or boat?
Yeah, by train. Took us down by train, and then we sent us back out, sent us all home for a while, and then we wound up getting discharged.
So discharged.
Yeah.
Now, getting back to that March 23rd, 1944 date, obviously it was in a couple of days probably that your wife back home had to find out about it.
It was a while before they got let her know, and that was something there. They're supposed to take, and if they notify anybody, let them. What I understand is they just come home and come and knock at the door, and the wife answers the door and says, your husband's missing in action, and that was it. They left, and my father-in-law come home, found her laying on the floor.
Passed out.
Yeah, passed out from the excitement, you know, and everything else, and finding out that I was alive and coming home. So, but in other words, they should have taken and stayed there, have somebody there,
Sure.
make sure to let you know that they were all right before they left. But they
Right.
didn't. They didn't do that. I mean, of course, they did a lot of strange things. I mean,
Sure.
all through the war, as far as that goes.
Right.
And,
There's a lot going on.
oh yeah,
Right.
that so.
So when did she find out that you were still alive?
Well, that there, I don't know. After it must have been after I was on my way home, coming out of camp in France. Must have heard that I was on my way home. So that's the last she heard, and then I didn't contact her until I got to Syracuse coming
Yeah,
home.
it's not like you could phone home on your cell phone back
Oh
then,
no,
right?
no, you didn't have the cell phones that time, you
Right,
know,
sure,
so you could call home.
right.
It would have been nice, but she didn't know until she seen me when I come home, and then my daughter she'd grown up then. Well,
Right.
she was about 3 years old then.
Sure.
Yeah, 4 years old about that time, and that was something surprising there.
So what was life like getting back into the more normal then?
Well, it was strange at first, but you had to be careful what you ate and stuff like that until you got your stomach
Conditions or whatever.
to the everything to the food and
Did you
stuff.
suffer from diarrhea and GI upset?
Only when I was in France,
Right.
when I was in Camp Lucky Straight. But then I found out the best thing to stop you, paregoric and bismuth.
Oh, it's a good combination.
Paregoric and bismuth, I'm telling you. I was so bound up that,
So you really didn't get sick your whole time then?
no. As much as I hated rutabaga soup, you'd eat it just to keep alive, just for something to take, you know.
So did you go back to work at Hubbard's?
No, I didn't. I come back and I'm trying to think of what the heck I did do. I think I come back and I went to work with the Carpenters Union, and I worked building houses.
Okay.
I come back working building houses because I went down to see him down there because, you know, at Hubbard's where I was, but
Right.
that I just felt I didn't feel like delivering drugs anymore and stuff like that. So, and
Sure.
I went out and I got working. I worked, in fact, Electronics Parkway. I worked out there, building that.
Okay.
One of the first jobs I had, and then from then on, it's been going back and forth doing. I was doing carpenter work. I worked a few places in houses for contractors and like that, and. Then I wound up, like I said, going on construction. And when I worked on construction, that was my job there. I was a teamster on that, and I worked for Warren Brothers, the biggest paving company, you know,
Okay.
in the country. They built the Hancock Field.
Right.
They put in that out there, and I worked for them up until they moved out. That's when I went to the post office after there, and.
How many years did you have with the post office?
Almost 5 years.
So 5.
Almost just short of 5 years with the post office. Just enough to get my pension out of the post office and pension with my Social Security. My wife couldn't understand it. She worked 30 years with the VA.
Sure.
And she worked before that and everything else. And she only gets like $200 Social Security. And she said, you get Social Security and you get your civil pay. And I said, yeah, I got out before they changed it. And that's the only reason I just stayed there for 5 years, a year or more, that I just got out of there.
What about the boxing? What happened after the war and you got settled back in home?
I went back in and I boxed. I went down to YMCA and trained kids and everything else again. And I boxed a few times, but I figured, no, I was getting up there and I says, no, there are too many young kids and everything else. I fought a few fights and I got out of it. That's when it says, Frank, why don't you try refereeing? And that's when I went into the refereeing. I refereed for quite a while, as you know. And in fact, Evan Evans, you remember Evan Evans out of Buffalo? He'd tell the commissioner, he says, you want to see a referee? Look at this one here. He says, he used to be a referee. He could move around that ring better than most of the guys you got today. And I didn't hear him say this. I heard him tell other guys telling me about it afterwards, that Evan Evans said that. And Sin Cara, he come up to me during the fight and he says, Frank, why don't you go back referee? He said, look at that referee. He don't even know enough. He let this fight go on. He should stop that fight. He shouldn't let this fight go on. I said, Doc, I says, I got nothing to say about it. It's not me.
You have no control over that.
I have no
right?
control of that. So he passed away quite a few years ago now. And he was quite a handball player. He loved to play handball at the YMCA.
There were 2 times that you either bailed out or crashed, basically, in a B-17 before you actually went to war. Why don't you tell us a little bit about those episodes?
Well, that was after we formed a crew that would stay together while we were overseas and that. And one night they sent us out on a night mission up into Oklahoma. Well, on the way we started having engine trouble, and one engine conked out and another one out, and the captain, the pilot, ordered us to bail out. So we ordered the rest of them to bail out, and they bailed out at night in the dark. And the pilot, all of us was bailed out, but the pilot, he rode the plane down, and he wound up landing somewhere in Moorland, Oklahoma. And after we landed, we went to a farmhouse. 2 of us wound up at a farmhouse, and they put us together with a camouflage camp that was somewhere near there, and made arrangements to ship us back to our base back into Texas. And that's about it.
So was that a little exciting for you, parachuting at nighttime? Were you able to see anything? Was there moon? Was there anything? Was it just dark?
Well, before I landed, all I could see is my feet up in the air and my chute coming out, and all I could see is the moon between my legs. And then when I landed, luckily I landed in a nice spot not too far from a farmhouse, and went to there, and I'm calling out for any of the other members of the crew that bailed out if they were near. And I didn't get together with them until afterwards. One other person that was on our plane, we got together, and we finally got together at the camouflage camp that was near Woodward, Oklahoma,
right,
and shipped us back to Texas. How he ever to do it at midnight or dark at night, as dark as that was. I mean, there was some moonlight, but I don't know how he landed it, but he was just fortunate to land that plane and belly land it. And from what I heard, he come so close that when he realized where he was, that he was real close to going over a cliff. And they still have the plane, as far as I know, in Moorland, Oklahoma.
The second plane that you were involved with an accident was while you're based in Poddington, wasn't it? Poddington, England.
England, yeah.
1943. What happened then?
We went out on a mission, and engine started acting up, and we had to abort the mission, went back, and when we got back, our crew, the ground crew chiefs, worked on the plane, and they said they wanted us to take it up for a test run to see if everything was running all right. So we took it up, and everything was running perfect. We come back, and evidently whoever's in the tower sent us in downwind, and we got so far down, so low, we couldn't go up and we couldn't go down. So the pilot finally got the plane down, but it wasn't soon enough for us to stop it before we got to the end of the runway. We went off the end of the runway and through a barbed wire fence, and the plane nosed up, right up in the air, the tail straight up in the air, and then down.
What did you do, Frank, after that?
Well, I was just worried about the navigator who was in the front of the plane. I yelled down there to him, "Are you all right?" And he says, "Yeah." And we got out and took one look, and he was all right, but you couldn't believe it. He had oxygen cables and everything else wrapped all around him and everything else, but he wasn't hurt. He wasn't hurt at all. That was a miracle.
So Lieutenant Larrivee pulled you through a second accident.
A second accident.
Right.
That was for sure. He was lucky except on that last one.
Right.
Yeah, that was all. That was fortunate for him, but he didn't make it, that's all. We were just lucky there. I mean, as far as the 2 of us, the radio operator and myself, but the rest of the crew went down with the ship. That's all I can remember that.
Well, Frank, thank you for your service.
Okay, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome, Jeff.